Welcome to A Couple of Musicians. Our guest today,
Sorry, I didn't know you were going to keep going. Go.
welcome to A Couple of Musicians.
We're so excited for our guest today, Katrina Yaukey, because she plays this instrument.
She also plays this instrument.
She also plays this instrument.
Oh, and she plays this instrument.
She plays this instrument.
She really plays this instrument. And she plays this instrument.
You don't even know what that is. Katrina Yaukey plays multiple instruments. She's a dancer, singer, and actor on Broadway. Let's hear about her journey from being an oboe major at Penn State to Broadway superstar.
This is all in your program. You are at the opera. Gonna have to study up a little bit if you want to keep with the plot.
Hi, Katrina.
Hi. Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you guys.
We decided that we wanted to interview friends of ours that we really admire their careers. So
Oh.
you're one of the first people that I thought of because the first time I found out about you, the first time I learned about you, we were watching Billy Elliot on Broadway.
Oh.
And at intermission, I read your bio and I saw oboe major at Penn State. And
Yes.
I was like, what's happening? I love this so much. And so then I kept seeing you and I saw you in Warhorse.
Yes.
And then I saw you at Natasha and Pierre and the Great Comet where we met because I got to
Yes.
oboe there. And I've been ever since then so curious about your path from being an oboe major to being such a Broadway superstar. And it's no secret that when I was younger, I wanted to be a dancer on Broadway, and I feel so grateful that I get to play the oboe on Broadway. But for you to get to play your instruments and perform on stage as an ensemble member or as a lead is just fantastic.
Oh, thank you. My parents had a band and we all had to play instruments. So I took drum lessons and piano lessons first. And my mother played keys and sang, and my dad played guitar and bass with foot pedals and also sang. My brothers played drums and horns. And I wanted to play violin, and there wasn't a string program where I grew up. And I was already, a pretty active kid. My mom had me in movement classes and dance classes. And, it was one more thing to have to drive somewhere for pretty far away to study the violin. And I was like, oh, curses. And my mother took me to see an orchestra, and a woman stood up and played a note, and then everybody did it after her. And I was like, I don't care, whatever that one is. Because she had done something. She had like a role, and like she like, and then people played the note, and then she did it again. And little did I realize that it was the oboe, of course. And then, you're in fourth grade, and so my parents talked with the school about me starting on oboe, and they said, no, we don't start kids on the oboe. And I was like, what? I don't get to play the violin, and now you're telling me I can't play the oboe? And my mom was like, listen, she does have a good ear. She's been matching pitch for, since she was little. And they actually decided that they would let me start with the fifth graders who had, started on other instruments. And I got to start on the oboe, which I was like, yes, victory. But then little did I realize what that instrument would entail. But I remember we were learning our first notes, B, A, G, and we weren't supposed to go below the break of the instrument. And of course I went home and I wanted to learn all the notes immediately. So if you pick up a saxophone, if you pick up a clarinet or a flute, you're already going to have the facility of those instruments a little bit, obviously different embouchure, but you have that facility within you, because the oboe is difficult. And especially if it's like your primary instrument, the others can sort of fall in line. So my brother's sax would be laying around, and I would pick it up and be able to play it. And he couldn't pick up the oboe though and play it, because that reed was such a crazy thing. But when I was trying to think of what I, wanted to go to school for, I had done theater and saw my mom in a production on stage in 1983, and she danced and sang and did this duet with somebody. And I was like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I was like, I want to do that, what my mom is doing. And I didn't ever think it would be possible to incorporate all of those things that I loved. And, my first jobs, when I went to Penn State to play oboe, I originally was just a straight oboe performance major. Like, I didn't think that I was going to go the theater route, and then I missed it. And so I switched and I was double major for my second year. And I decided that I wanted to apply to some other programs. So I applied to some other schools, and when I was about to step foot on another campus, I booked a national tour as a dancer. And so I actually didn't finish. I studied for 2 years at Penn State. I didn't finish my training there, but I'm sure you can appreciate this. Sitting in that reed making class, that was an interesting group of people. Yeah, but it was cabaret. That was the show that someone told me about, and I didn't know what it was. And when I saw it, and the girls were dancing and singing and playing instruments, I was like, oh, this is it. There's a place for me. There's this could be a job for me. But I have to say, Broadway felt incredibly unattainable, incredibly. And I feel like because of my, I guess, diverse interest, it lent itself to that show and my foot in the door with, with the Broadway scene.
The year I moved to LA, which is where I met Kerry, was the year that cabaret came out, and I was like, oh my God, I'm leaving when it's like happening, where they're combining dancers who play an instrument, and I was already gone. So that I love that that's the show that you were in, and I was like, that show I would have loved to be a part of, but who knows what would have happened with that, because I really was too scared to venture out on other instruments. I didn't pick up the sax or the clarinet or the flute.
It's just a slightly different embouchure that is actually way more forgiving, I think, than the oboe. I've always wanted to play a lot of instruments, and I did want to be a good oboe player, but now it is sort of transformed into this thing where I want to play as many things as possible. They're just all so interesting. And, I did pick up when I was doing company in 2006. I did start playing the violin, and I am not very good. And I have to say that I think it's actually my favorite instrument. And it's the one I am the worst at. I will never be a great star on the instrument, but my God, I love to play it, because I was hired as a standby once they did the Broadway transfer. And one of the gals I covered, Elizabeth Stanley, had played oboe in high school, but oboe doesn't march. So she wanted to march, so she played tuba. So Mary Mitchell Campbell wrote her a book that was oboe, tuba, alto, saxophone. She'd never played alto, but Mary Mitchell was like, they can all pick up the alto, it'll be no problem. And so my one track was literally start the show on oboe, put it down, put some reed in some water, and pick up a tuba for the second song. And I mean, you want to talk about embouchure, just craziness. I hadn't played tuba before. However, I had played trumpet and French horn. Yeah, so I played oboe, flute, alto, tenor, trumpet, tuba, piano. Those are my covers. So that was 3 girls, and I covered their instruments. And then that was an instrument for 2 guys, I think. Oh, it feels so long ago. But it was 7 instruments. And at the time, that was all the AFM would allow us to play. Yeah. So I think if we had been allowed to play more things, it could have been more. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about all of your entrepreneurial ventures. What is that accordion behind you? What other things have you created in your life?
Oh, when I talk to people about my journey, I've always had interest in many things. And one of the things that I think that has sustained me in those moments where I'm not working as an artist has been, figuring out other things that bring me joy in my life. My grandmother played accordion, and it was something very specific to her. She toured playing gospel music with the accordion. And so I had this image of what it was and this specific idea of the sound. And when I was in cabaret, they asked me if I would cover for Lacoste, who played the accordion. And they said, can you play the accordion? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I played piano all my life. So shouldn't be too much of a thing. And it was around the house. I could pick it up, and the right hand was always fine. It was just this left hand full of buttons that was like really confusing. But when I actually started to pay attention to it, I was like, oh my God, this is a circle of fifths. This whole thing is a circle of fifths over here. And it's just a pattern. And once you learn that pattern, you are set free in the world of the accordion. It's so good.
He doesn't even know this, but my mom grew up playing accordion.
What?
You know that?
But the old school, like German polka accordion.
Yes. I mean, that is like, there is a massive life for the polka on the accordion. So I started playing it after cabaret closed. I started playing in a band, an all-female accordion band called the Main Squeeze Accordion Orchestra. And the band leader was this German guy named Walter, who's just an incredible human. He has since passed, but with the permission of the person who took on the rights of the business, I asked if I could carry on the business. So I decided there aren't any accordion repair shops in New York City proper. There's a few people in the outskirts in some of the boroughs, but nobody in Manhattan. And people would often say, hey, something's wrong with my accordion. Can you take a look? And when I was in Great Comet, I had a friend who I would, say, hey, come to the theater. Josh Groban's accordion's having a moment. Because I could look at it, but if I messed something up, it was just maybe not good. So after Great Comet, I decided, you know what, I kind of want to take this seriously. So I flew to Italy 3 times. I flew to Germany, studied at the Weltmeister factory, which is where this instrument is from, Germany. And I studied at a really reputable place in Italy as well. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, this repair stuff is the best stuff I've ever done.
Were you doing August Rush when the pandemic also hit, or was that before?
That was before. I was doing Assassins at Classic Stage, and I was playing flute, clarinet, mandolin, dulcimer. I forget, there's another instrument. I can't believe it. It's been how many months since but we're on pause for that in hopes that it actually happens next year too.
I do think that you and David Michael Gary are the only 2 people that I know that play across the string, brass, woodwind percussion family.
Yeah, it's because we love it. I mean, it's like an obsession.
Do you have a system for practicing the instruments, or do you just practice on whatever the project is that you're currently in and you just focus on those instruments?
I find that, when people say, hey, how do you make yourself practice? Like, what do you do? I mean, for me, honestly, they have to be sitting out. Like, if they're not out of their cases, if they're not on display for me to guiltily look at every day, I'm less likely to pull them out. I had to have, years ago, I had to have all my instruments appraised. I had 41 instruments that I had appraised. They were all like in nooks and crannies underneath the grand piano in my apartment. And I still have my Lorraine. I have my one good oboe, but I sold my other one that I took to the desert. I took an oboe to Burning Man, and I played in an orchestra at Burning Man. No one should take a wooden oboe to the desert, but I did, and it played magnificently.
Well, unless you're planning on throwing it into the fire at the end of the show.
I mean, that could be it too. So,
I want to ask you about the Comet, because I know that you were in like all of the incarnations.
Almost all. There was a Ars Nova production that was incredibly small. I wasn't in that one. And there was the downtown tent, and then they moved to the uptown tent. That's when I joined.
Okay.
And actually, great story. I heard about the show. I went to see it on a Thursday night, and I texted stage manager friend who was there and said, I'm seeing your show. And he's like, wait, are you in town? Are you available? And I said, yes. And he's like, call your agent tomorrow. At the end of the show, before I could leave the building, the PSM came out and said, hey, you're Katrina. I looked you up. This girl's leaving the show on Sunday. She was accordionist. She's leaving on Sunday. Call your agent. And so I called my agent the next day, and he's like, I don't know. Calls me back, says, you have an audition on Monday. It's an immediate start on Tuesday. I listened to the music over the weekend, auditioned on Monday. And then I got a call from the stage manager before my agent saying, great, congrats, we'll see you at the tent tomorrow at noon, bring your accordion. And I was like, wait, I got the job? And then my agent called me and said, so it's an immediate start, bring your accordion. I show up at the tent, and our glorious musical director was like, hey, so she left the show on Sunday. How do you feel about playing some things in the accordion on the show tonight? We have to call the union, and you're AFM, so we have to call the union and see if we can make an exception. And they did. And there was one moment where I got to dance through the audience. I had to memorize this short 16-bar passage on the accordion and dance through the audience. And then Lucas would kiss me on my cheek, and then I'd exit. And so I was in the show my very first night, which was crazy. And then I learned the role that I was Princess Mary in the tent. So I learned the role and then stepped into it the following week after. But I played accordion from the start, my very first day at work there, which was awesome.
I mean, that's a great example of being prepared and in the right place at the right time.
And also, what are you going to do? Are you going to say no? Because literally, I mean, yes, maybe in some circumstances people would say no, but if this is what you want to do, and this is the life that you have chosen, I mean, these opportunities, you have to just grab them and run. I mean, you've got to be excited when that stuff happens,
if you go to talk to students or college students or high school students, what's the one message that you want to leave them with?
You put yourself out there, you get involved, you know, in your community. And I also would encourage, I never liked it when people say, oh, do you have a backup plan? Because that's not it. It's not a backup plan. It's like, what else can I do to complement what I'm already doing? So physically, what completes me? Do I need to do yoga every day? Do I need to be somebody who runs? Like, if you have something you're interested in that's not in the arts, by all means, explore that as well. I would never say, make sure you got the backup plan. Though I'm sure that's very valid for some people to feel that they have another plan in place. But yeah, I don't know. My advice probably will change in the next 6 months even.
Yeah, I have hope that all of the shows that we were involved in will come back and will return and
Yeah.
be back with our friends, and it'll be incredibly an emotional high to make music and theater together and dance, and
I mean, that first night back on Broadway.
can't wait.
The world's gonna be changed forever. So,
Yeah.
creative artists are there to communicate in the way that is appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you have such an incredible career, really. I mean, I admire
Thank you.
your pictures, and I see all the shows you've done and all those instruments that you play, and I know that so many youngsters look up to you and just say, I hope I can do something like what Katrina did.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much.
What an inspirational story you have. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure to speak with you both. Bye.
Bye.
Life is the cabaret of